not the problem. What is the problem? Landing. All of that, no problem. It's the sudden stop. This causes all the problems. If we want to control the movement of the feet, what is one thing that will really help this?
Keep the weight.
Weight on the hands. If you're like this, you don't have the control. And people say bandhas and stuff, but honestly, if the weight's not in the hands, it doesn't matter how great your bandhas are, you crash. We're dealing with physics. Yeah? Like Newton says, every action has equal and opposite reaction. If I want to control my feet coming down, I'm also pushing. I'm lifting up a little to control that coming down action. You know? But the weight has to be in the hands.
David, in the workshop you were mentioning that in the 1960s when you started Ashtanga, it was just basically hippies doing yoga.
Right.
And nowadays we have everybody doing yoga, all from all walks of life. Do you think this has a bearing on society? Do you think it changes society?
I think that yoga changes people. So it was hippies interested in doing it. Some of those hippies actually became business people and things, but they're still sort of hippies at heart. But it hasn't really changed the yoga, but yoga does change people's lives. But there's an interesting dynamic of this. If you look, sometimes we say, well, yoga will really change your life. But I back up one step before that and say, what was happening in your life that made you want to go to a yoga class? Something made you also interested in yoga. There was maybe already a change happening, and then the yoga was a catalyst or a tool to help that. But ultimately, yoga is a tool. So the fascinating thing about it is business people find benefit from it. Athletes find benefit from it. A doctor or students studying, or people are finding all kind of applications for yoga. And then people have interest in a specific area. Maybe they're working with ADD or addiction issues, and they find, wow, yoga is this universal tool. So it just happens that that in the early days, it was the yoga people that were interested in it were hippies. But because of its universal application, the yoga is the same, but more people are finding interest in it. I mean, I don't have some utopian idea that if everybody does yoga, it'll be a perfect paradise, because there's a lot of not nice people that do yoga. But maybe they'd be worse if they were not doing yoga.
Relax where possible, activate where necessary. Arms remain straight, legs relax. Right? If we can figure this out, then maybe even it works in humans. Yeah? The legs relax, they follow the movement of the hips. The legs are just relaxed doing this. You never have to do that thing I just did. You know? It's never like you start to jump through and go, hey, and you go back.
Nowadays, there's a lot of us achievers doing yoga, and we can get caught up in this feeling like if I don't do my practice, then we feel guilty about this. Do you have any suggestions in how to not make this like another thing to do in the day?
Right. If we look at yoga as the thing that helps all the other things we do, the asanas aren't the goal. We don't do yoga to become an asana machine, like robo-yogi. You put in a coin and we do the shapes. That time on the mat is like a laboratory for life. How do we deal with the asanas we don't like? How do we deal with the ones we love, etc.? Can we create an equal mind while we practice? It's just a learning center for the rest of our day. And as like an overachiever, oh, we want to get this, we want to get this. So you can't blame someone for bringing that to yoga because that's the tool that they have been successful with in life. So you have to understand, okay, I understand. But you may have to tell this person, look, I appreciate your enthusiasm. That's really good. That's a great quality. But if you try to hurry in yoga, this is going to beat you up. Don't make this another place of drudgery and duty and all this kind of stuff. Make the mat the loving place. My wife Shelley describes the mat like this. She said she would think of her mat like her mother. Now she said her mother because not everyone has good relationships with their mom, right? But she said because her mother was very loving. No matter what she did, her mother was always like this. Welcome home, we love you. If the mat and the practice is that, so when you come to the mat, you missed a few days of practice. You will never find the practice waiting for you on the mat like this. And just where have you been the last few days? You should feel bad about yourself. I bet you can't do what you were doing before. Looks like you gained some weight too. Blah, blah, blah. The mat will never do that. The practice is just like this. Wow, so great to see you again. The mat is the place of freedom. This is where we go away from all of those other pressures. Now you can turn it into a pressure, but don't blame it on the yoga. Make the yoga the happy place. Patabi Joyce used to say, minimum daily practice, 3A, 3B, the final 3 postures of closing sequence. That's the time you've got. Do that. That's real. That's Patabi Joyce saying this to people. He understands not everybody can do the 90 minutes. If you can, great. But if you give the people the option, you have to do this 6 days a week, 90 minutes a day, or don't do Ashtanga, people won't do it. Yeah. Better to make this as a positive thing. This is the place I go because when I do it, I feel good. I feel good after.
And what about for yoga teachers? Because in the yoga, I think even the average person, they have their profession outside.
Yeah.
But a yoga teacher, we feel the pressure then when we see David Swenson come and he does all these things and you have all your yoga students watching and you know that, I've never been able to do this and I never will be able to do this. So then you can feel a little bit like, oh, I'm not so good at the yoga.
It's very easy to compare ourselves to other people. And we can find a massive list of reasons why we should feel bad about ourselves. Yeah? We can make a huge list. But why? You can also make a list of reasons to feel good about yourself. I said this jokingly in the class the other day. Do you want to feel good about yourself? Go to your high school class reunion and just look around the room and you'll be like, whoa. Exactly. And as a teacher, what is the greatest compliment a student can give to their teacher? What would it be?
That I felt great after that practice, after the class.
Yes, all of those things, but the greatest compliment is for the student to surpass the teacher. Exactly. That's the greatest thing, but a teacher always feels like, oh, I have to be on front, I have to be on top, I have to be... The duty of the teacher is to encourage, inspire, and facilitate practice. And then you have your own practice as well, So as a teacher, you need to keep practicing, but students are going to be able to do stuff you can't do. Other people can do stuff you can't do. In the old Western, they used to say there will always be a faster gun. There will always be someone much more flexible, someone stronger, someone better looking, whatever it is, there's always the other.
Exactly, yeah.
And so if you tie self-identity around these things, you're always going to be bummed out. Because there's a newer person, there's the younger person, there's the funnier person, there's the more flexy person, there's the stronger person, there's the blah, blah, blah. And if you're competing on that, it's a dead end. When is it okay to feel good about your practice? And for all of us, or for many of us, let's say you have 50 people in a class, they love it, and one person comes up and says, I didn't like the class. all we remember is one person didn't like the class. Something wrong with me. One person didn't like it. Or, oh, I used to be able to do that, now I can't do that. But you forget all the things you still can do. Yeah? So just look, I can still do this much. And when somebody else can do other stuff, I know it's hard, but just be happy for it. Go, wow, that's so great. Go for it. But the day that you realize what you can do is what you can do. Part of the yoga is also accepting things you cannot.
Joke about Patabi Joyce saying, yoga is not easy. But what did he mean? But what part is not easy? Yeah, it's not easy to bind, it's not easy to jump through. Yeah, that's hard.
It's not easy. The principles of yoga in our life.
What happens the rest of the day? You finish your yoga practice, you get up on the mat, you go out onto the street. Now how hard is yoga? Whoa. That's where the difficulties arise. It's a challenge on the mat, but the bigger challenge is how does this apply in my life? When you have some problem at work, is it going to help to jump up on the boardroom table and do a couple of vinyasas? Jump through a couple times? Yeah? How does the yoga then apply within everything? And that's the idea of this class, to figure out how does this apply into life? Why did Patabi Joyce say it's not easy? And what is not easy?
So what is yoga?
Yoga is a tool for life. All right? Yoga is not a religion. It's a philosophy. It's a way of life. If you look at the old Star Wars movies or Star Trek, when they're in their spaceship and the enemy ship comes and they're shooting all these missile things at them. And in the ship they push a button and there's a force field goes around the ship. Now all of those things they're shooting are bouncing off because there's a force field. But what happens? They're in the battle long enough and the force field starts to weaken and they're freaking out. We've got to get out of here. The shield's coming down. We got to get out of here. What is yoga? You do yoga. The only reason to do this stuff? Increase prana in your body. That prana becomes like a bubble, like a filtration system around us. How many things do we not have control over in our life? Most things.
Pretty much.
Weather, the economy, violence, right? We don't know when these things can happen. At any moment, stuff can happen. The only thing we have true control over in life is how do we respond to the challenges that come up to us in a day. If we do yoga, we have a filtration system. It doesn't change the world out there, but this stuff that's coming at me, it slows it down a little. It gives me a different reaction or a response. The force field weakens, I got to get back down there, put some more prana in my body because I can't control that world out there, but I'm going to control how we respond to it. When I do my yoga, I respond with greater sanity and less pain. When that force field moves away, pow! Now those things are real harsh. They're hitting me. It's harder to deal. I do my yoga again. That's the yoga. It's this tool. We do it to enhance all of the other areas of life. You can be a Hindu, you can be a Muslim, you can do anything you want and do yoga. It's a practice for life. It's a tool for living. The asanas is just the laboratory. But if the goal really is to put prana in our body, what is one of the greatest drainers of prana in life?
Stress.
Stress and pain. So what if we practice yoga and imagine that practicing yoga is like pouring prana into a bucket, into our body bucket. Great. We're putting this prana energy in there. But we practice in such a way that we cause pain. You pour prana into the bucket and simultaneously you punch holes in the bottom of it. You put prana in and it drains right out. So yoga is this practice to increase prana. You should feel good at the end. If you're feeling tired, beat up, exhausted after practice, it's too much.
Yeah.
You can get too much of a good thing. It means you're practicing too hard. Put the prana in your body. Leave that mat feeling good. Leave your yoga practice like eating a meal, just a little bit hungry for the next one. Don't OD on the yoga. Thank you. It's been so great. Thank you so much, Linda.